Well, here we are with our own little midnight rambler, Margaret Trudeau. This is her book, by the way. It's called Beyond Reason. I've read this book. It's as honest a book by someone in public life as you probably will ever read, I would suspect. There's not a lie in this, is there?
No.
No. You can tell. Because, as you said, the lawyer said the only person who could be sued from this book would be you could sue yourself.
Yes, for defamation of character.
Let's talk about some of the people that you had your paths crossed with. For example, you to stay with the Nixons, I was really surprised at what Pat Nixon did up in Canada. And I think that's a story worth telling. When she rushed in...
Oh, but... I have another story about Pat Nixon, not this story, because
okay.
that one wasn't very nice. But I remember during the David Frost interviews, I don't know if it happened in America, but it happened in Canada. David Frost turned to President Nixon, I guess he wasn't president then, Mr. Nixon, and said to him, "Now, what about Pat?" And he said, and he went on for a good 7-8 minutes, and there was a thing, sorry, technical failure, do not adjust your sets.
Huh.
And then it came back on, and that was it. And then they went on to another subject. So she didn't even get, this happened up in Canada on the network, she didn't get any kind of recognition. I mean, that was her moment when he was saying good things about her and how supportive she'd been and what a help. And she was a great help to him. She worked overtime.
I've always had a very positive feeling about her.
Yes,
and that's why.
And I think she was very much a victim. Very much a victim.
Well, for certain. But that's why I was so surprised about this thing in the book.
But this story was just, that was part of the Nixon's idea of the historical importance of their being president and president's wife. She wanted everything recorded, and she asked to come over and see my baby, who was just new, and I was very nervous, and she wanted all the press to come in, and we don't allow the press in our house. And then she said, well, just one for history, just one photographer. Well, she never lifted up her coffee. She didn't talk. She just posed and then left. And I sort of felt afterwards that it was just another photographic session.
Yeah.
But I think that was because they were really caught up in the historical importance of every move they made, which I think history has unfolded and shown that was Nixon's preoccupation.
The reason I was so taken by, I thought that they were just trying to use you for publicity purposes and hold up your baby.
Yes, no, that's what it was.
That was part of it too.
Yes. Well, that's what I mean. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Did you feel comfortable when you were, most of the time, this is a generalization, but when you were at state dinners, like when you went to the White House, when you were in China, when you were dealing on this high level, did you ever really enjoy yourself?
Oh, I had a lot of fun.
What are the happy memories, the ones where you transcended the protocol, where it didn't make any difference? Would Cuba be one with Castro?
Oh, yes, we had a lovely time in Cuba. Wonderful. We'd get ready to go out, and he'd come to pick us up, and he'd say, "Where's Mish?"
Your son.
And my 4-month-old baby, well, he's up with the nanny. Whoa, bring him. And then he got furious because I had him in one of these English romper suits, and he told me to change him because that's no clothes for boys. And, you know, he took a tremendous interest in the baby, and the baby went everywhere with us. We have these wonderful photographs where he's got this, on his fatigues or whatever it is he wears, a big patch of saliva from the baby drooling all over him.
So that was good. That was, you felt you had an immediate good response.
Yes, it was on a one-to-one, you know, kind of.
And what about the spearfishing party? That sounded like fun.
That was very, very, very exciting. I wasn't going to be allowed to go because they felt it was Pierre and Castro were going to go up to have some private talks for a night at a sort of unknown destination. And it was very rough. It was sort of a radar military camp and on the sea. And I wasn't going to be allowed to go. Instead, I was going to go and see a Canadian ballet in Havana. Well, I can see lots of Canadian ballets in Canada.
Don't blame you, sure.
And so but the Canadians said just no way, that the baby and I would be an inconvenience. There was no place for us. And so at lunchtime, Premier Castro turned to me and he said, "Why aren't you coming?" And I said, "Well, the Canadians won't let me." He said, "Aren't you a photographer?" I said, they think I'll be in the way, that I have no function. "Aren't you a photographer?" said, He said, well then, we're not having any press up there. You come and take pictures. You've got working. And when I got up there, they had a bedroom for me with every single bit of layette, equipment, and bed, nanny, the whole thing. And we had the most extraordinary evening. Pierre went out with him, and they spearfished and caught the whole dinner in the sea, and they cooked it on the barbecue. There was no electricity. They sort of hooked up a generator, and we had a discussion at a table where everyone was included. Our policeman, the nanny, the cook, everyone sat around this table. Mind you, there was the advantage that Pierre spoke Spanish, so that they were arguing in Spanish, and it was just about 3 weeks before it became publicly known that the Cubans were as guerrillas in Angola, and so there was a tremendous argument between them about this, and it was a very intense, lovely evening, very...
Could you generally participate in discussions like that if you wanted to?
Yes, he would. At several times, he turned to me. He gave me the credit of turning to me and translating for me what was going on and asking my opinion. He even asked the nanny's opinion on problems of being free in an unfree world.
Now, if Cuba was the high, or one of the highs that was good, would the low, in terms of being comfortable, would that have been France when you...
Yes, indeed.
Why?
Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say it, but I found that the French can be the most arrogant people in the world, if they want to be.
I think the women were jealous of you. That's my theory on reading the book, the way they treated you. You were younger by 20, 25 years than these official wives.
Yes, and the French believe very much that they have the corner on elegance, on taste, on sophistication, and that their civilization is one of the highest civilizations in the world. And we've always had a problem in Canada because we have a French-speaking population, and that is quite different from the French-speaking from France. It's Quebecois. It's got a very sort of North American spirit to it. At the same time, it's French-speaking, although their language is a bit different. But this was our first visit to France, official visit, since de Gaulle had got up and sort of destroyed our country by yelling at Expo, Vive Quebec Libre, which was just, so incredibly, wrong of him to do that we broke off sort of diplomatic relations. And this was the first time we went back. And there was a sort of they just made me feel terribly uncomfortable, like I didn't belong and that they weren't kind.
And you were insecure with your French, which would be the same for me if I were trying to use my French.
Yes, and they treated me like a, sort of a young child. Yes, but perhaps I should have been treated as that. But I found that the heaviest. And as well, I had just come out of being through tremendous emotional problems, so perhaps I wasn't as sound as I could have been, and I took more offense. I was a bit more paranoid than I normally am.
But you had a great time in China. Well, let's take a break, and we'll continue. I'm curious what you think is going to be happening in the election. Pierre Trudeau is running May 22nd. His seat is on his position, his office is on the line. How do you think he's going to do?
Oh, I imagine he's going to do very well.
You're confident?
Yes. Yes. He's the only choice.
If he were to lose, would that totally change your future as of the next morning, insofar as the man who is your husband would no longer be in the public office, would no longer have the security, would no longer have the protocol? You could conceivably have a private life.
I think I'd have an awful lot of work to do. Yes, at home, if he were to not to win. Yes.
With the 3 children?
Yes.
But you're confident that he's going to win?
Oh, yes.
If he lost, would you feel guilty at all that you had any culpability in it?
I think that people would like to blame me, but I don't think that they can get away with that.
Well, as I read it in Canada, you are not part of the issue.
No, I don't think so at all.
I've done some reading.
No, it's quite another issue. It's a question of national unity.
Yeah, you might actually get more blame in the American press or international press than you would at home. Let me shift to the audience. Hello.
Hi.
Where are you from? Northern
New York
Africa?
City. What?
New York City.
New York City. Yes. I had a question. The way you wear your hair and the way you dress and everything is very free, and it goes very much along with your type of personality, the way you are now. Did you find that while you were in the position of being being his wife, that you were repressed and that you had to maintain a certain image that you just rejected totally?
I just never understood it. I found myself getting so matronly, of destroying my hair by trying to,
than you do. I mean, than you do in the photographs that they showed at the beginning of the show.
Really wanting to please, and yet not knowing how.
Because it wasn't really you.
Because it wasn't part of me, you know. Now I feel free just to wash my hair and wear what I want.
Yeah, you look great too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Margaret, we both share, you know, similarity in terms of being the same generation, and some similarity in the same experiences, right, in the 60s. What do you think about the traditional roles? Husband, wife, children, fidelity, monogamy, whatever. Do you think that we are evolving in a really totally different direction, or do you feel pretty much it's still the same old story, that in spite of the 60s, which you write about with such conviction, in spite of this whole experience, people are pretty much going to end up having the same family structure they've had?
I hope that we're actually even going to get away from this sort of alienated nuclear family and get back more to the bigger extended family, because I think that we really need all the world is so difficult and complex that we need all the support and the help from everyone in our family around us. I hate to see the nuclear family. I hate to see marriage breakdowns. I believe very much in true love and in commitment and in fidelity and all of that. If there is a two-way thing, you know.
What do you want for yourself now, having had a family at a young age, right? Having gone through, well, still being involved technically in a marriage. No, if I could have you on a future talk show, say, 10 years from now, what would you like to be able to say that you did in the 80s?
Oh, in the future.
Yeah, in the next 10 years.
I hope that I lived my life out the best that I could, that I gave my children, which I will have with me forever, the best that I can give them, the best in terms of encouragement to be free and strong and healthy and committed to values of freedom. I hope that I'll be able to also say that I've done something useful in the world.
What form do you think that would take? Might it be acting? Might it be photography? Or is there something else you have on your mind?
Well, I'm fascinated with the world, obviously, the world of communications and media and all of that. I think I would like to work, as you were saying earlier, to try and take, sort of use the whole media sensationalism and direct it towards...
a cause, right?
Well, a cause is a sort of a...
Well, what do you care about? For example, there's a photograph of you with Margaret Mead in the book, right? And that had something to do with clean air and clean water, right? Yeah. If someone came to you and said, we're going to back you as a political force for change, all you have to do is pick what you want to try to change, what would it be? Well, the first thing, of course, would be to clean up the water of the world and to take, I think, Barbara Ward's solution of just 10% of each country's defense budget in order to clean up the water, because what we're growing in the world, in the underdeveloped and developing countries, because of the impure water, I mean, it's like drinking, excuse my language, a glass. We're getting tremendous mental retardation. We're getting children who are growing up who are not going to be strong, useful survivors. They're going to be very troubled, aggressive, emotionally limited people. And if we can't give just clean water to our world's children, what can we give them? And I would also like to work very much with mental illness. Having gone through so much torment myself, I know how it feels. And I just think that there's just so much that we can do to help people get their feet back on the ground and trust themselves and have self-esteem and to love instead of to fear. Well, one thing you could do in future interviews, when people want to use you, right, they want to have Margaret Trudeau on their program, or they want to get a picture of Margaret Trudeau, they want to talk to you, would be to make certain that you include in future interviews, some of your statements, in a way Jane Fonda does. I couldn't have Jane Fonda on this show just to talk about her career, just to talk about her movies. She would slip it in somehow, it would come in, and in a way maybe you could do that as well. And in terms of mental health, how do you feel now? Do you feel you've had a catharsis, and do you feel happy and peaceful for the most part? Yes. No, I really feel very, very sound and very happy and very confident and positive. I don't feel ugly and hurt and torn and wounded anymore. And that was only with the help of my friends, with the help of people who cared. And also that's all you need. The process of writing the book. Yes, yes. Well. Well, this is the book, and I've already made a couple of statements about it, so I won't belabor the point. It's Paddington Press, it's Beyond Reason, and it's by Margaret Trudeau. And I thank you for your openness, your honesty,
Thank you.
and everything else that you had this afternoon.